This is the new M.Zuiko 150-600 f5 to 6.3 lens. And I suspect a lot of wildlife photographers, and especially those of you who photograph birds, might be quite excited about this. So 150 to 600 millimeter, or 300 to 1200 millimeter if you're talking kind of full frame equivalent. I also think that you've probably seen a lot of reviews of this already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a little bit of time just going through the lens, kind of the buttons, the layout, the weight, and those kind of things. And then we're going to try using it a little bit here in the forest. And at the end, I'm going to show you more of the images that I've gotten over the last month or so that I've been using this lens with the OM1 Mark II, and talk a little bit about my thoughts about it and who I think this lens might be suited for. I'm a wildlife photographer and an OM system ambassador. This lens was sent to me with the OM1 Mark II in mid-December, so I've had about a month or so to play around with the setup. So I'm quite excited to show you guys what I've gotten with it so far. In comparison, the 150-400 with the built-in 1.25 teleconverter weighs about 2.2 kilograms with the lens hood and everything on it, and the 100-400 weighs about 1.4 kilograms with the lens hood on it. So obviously, if you're used to something like this, or maybe the 300, it is a little bit of extra weight for you to carry around on. But if you're used to using this lens here, then it's a pretty much similar weight. Although I always feel that this one seems a bit lighter for some reason. Maybe it's because the 150-600 is a bit more bulky and the weight's a bit more centered. This, I find, is a bit more evenly distributed, so it doesn't feel as heavy. The diameter of the front lens here is 95 millimeters, which is the same as on the 150-400, and the 100-400 is 72 millimeters. Now, when it comes to the button and kind of switches layout, on the right side there is a switch which is basically to do with the zoom. So you can lock it all the way to the left, you can lock it when it's in. So I tend to use that when I'm wearing it on a sling or something like that, just so it doesn't fully extend, sits a bit tighter to my body. There is a T, I think, for tight, so it's a bit tighter to move. And then there's an S, probably for smooth, which is very smooth and easy. Now this tends to be the default one that I shoot in. I like to be able to move the zoom back and forth a bit. On the other side, we got the focus limiter. So in the middle, you got the full range. All the way in is 10 meters to infinity. And if you switch it towards the front, it is 0.56 to 2.8 meters to 10 meters. So basically what that means is your minimum focus distance is 0.56 at 150 millimeters. But if you fully extend it, then your minimum focus distance is 2.8 meters. Below that is a switch for the autofocus and manual focus. And below that is the image stabilization on or off. So this syncs with the embody image stabilization. So you get really good image stabilization with this lens. There are 3 buttons around the barrel, which is the same button, and you can program it in camera to do what you want. That's the main kind of layout of the lens. I've seen some comments asking how heavy or front heavy it is. You know, I can hold it with one hand, not very comfortably. I can hold it like this for a short amount of time, and if I fully extend it, I definitely feel that it puts a bit more weight on it. Like I would not feel comfortable holding it like this shooting, maybe just the one shot. But then, you know, a hand on the lens collar or on the barrel itself, and it's not super heavy to carry. But if you're coming from the 100-400, it is quite a big difference. I'm so used to the 150-400 now that I don't notice it so much. The tripod collar, screw that here, very smooth kind of feel to it. I can't see any way to take this off. It seems stuck on there. And on the bottom, we got a nice built-in tripod plate, which I always found really useful to have on these lenses. It sits comfortably in my hand, and because of the good image stabilization, you can easily hand hold this to get video footage and photos at 600mm. And I was using that a lot when I was filming and photographing at Dovla, even putting the 1.4 teleconverter on. Okay, we got 2 red squirrels over there and a lot of bird activity. So what I was thinking now is to go over here and just enjoy using this lens for a bit. See what kind of images I can get. I'll film with it a bit as well. And after that, I'll head back to the house and I will show you some of my favorite images to date and talk a little bit about the strong points of this lens, some of the limitations, and who it might be for. So one of the reasons why I really like to have the zoom switch here in S, which is kind of smooth, is that for these small birds, it is quite tricky to focus on with a 600mm. One, because 600mm equivalent to 1200mm full frame is difficult to find a tiny bird with your narrow kind of frame. And two, at 600, the autofocus, does take a little bit longer to catch. I'd still say it's good, but when the focus is far away from the subject, it can take a little bit to actually find it. So what I like to do is just quickly zoom back to 300-400 or something like that, find a little bird, then zoom in, and it's just a much quicker way of operating. That's the way I find anyways. I don't always have to do that, especially not if I'm already focused nearby where the bird is, then I can just kind of keep it there and it will quickly get focus. It's more if my focus is way off and I basically have to start from scratch. Now, I have to say it's a fun lens to use because of the range that it gives you. Very fun. And you can really go close up. You can create something a bit different, when you really go close up and you focus on details of the animal or bird instead, go really close on the eye or part of their body. And I'm also finding when I'm walking around the forest, nothing is off limits. A woodpecker sitting in a tree far away, I can get it with this, and I can even make a small in frame that just far away with this lens. So it's a fun lens to use. So what I'm finding here now when I'm filming it is that it creates a really nice bokeh effect. Because it's 600mm, it is such a good reach that it really blurs out that background really nicely. Squirrels and chasing each other. So amazing. So now let's just go over a few of the images that I've gotten for the last month or so that I really like with the 150-600. I was in Norway and I found myself a dipper at the edge of this water. I was out looking for a long time and everything was just frozen over, but this little dipper was sitting here on a little rock and actually dove into the water and under the ice to feed. Absolutely fantastic. So I got my own 1 Mark II with the 150-600 and I lied down on the edge of the little stream just before the water where this little dipper was sitting. So I was far enough away, it didn't mind me, I could crawl up, I could use my zoom to get really close. And actually the image that you see here, it's cropped a little bit and it's actually at 548mm, so it's not even a full 600mm, because I wanted a little bit more of the environment. And you can see here behind, that there was nothing I could do, the bank was right behind it, but even still so, I still think it's fairly nicely blurred out, even though it was right immediately behind it. Ideally I wouldn't have had that, but there was just no other way I could take the image. But a really nice lens to have for something like this, where you can just get close, and I'm sitting a safe distance and not spooking the dipper. Here a mallard, and again I was not all the way in the 600mm, so I've zoomed back here to 473mm, just to get that little ring around the mallard, because I thought that was like part of the composition. But I really went in quite close at first because I really wanted to show off the droplets and everything. But I thought that little ring in the water kind of was part of the image, so I zoomed back a little bit, but still making it really close, a tight crop around the mallard. And 473 here, super sharp. Really happy with this image, because it's it's a common bird, so you do have to try a little bit different things, and having a long telephoto zoom like this means that you can easily do that. This is an image I really like. I was photographing a lot of the ducks on the ice, and then I noticed this hooded crow land on the ice, and then I started actually pecking at the ice, and I don't know if it was sucking up water. It was a really cool scene, and I used, again, 150-600. I could zoom all the way in at 600, which is ideal for corvids because they are very skittish. They do not allow a close approach of people. So I don't think this is cropped at all. At 600, I'm just lying by the water's edge. Very safe distance from this crow. I was totally fine with my presence, and I just thought it screamed for a black and white conversion. I just love this face and the detail of that head of the crow. Here I was just outside of Bergen, and eider ducks way in the distance out on sea. I found myself a really nice spot that I could lie all the way down to the water's edge, and I was really going for these images when I saw the male eider would get up and start flapping his wings. So I got a few of these images. This is a 600mm. It's far away. I could really see the difference in the OM1 Mark II with the AI bird subject detection. Picking up that bird far away in the water in backlight. So very impressed with that, and the fact that the 150-600 worked well with it, and actually it was fine picking up the bird like that and get focused on it. So I think this is a female tufted duck. Again, here's I was lying next to the ice. Some really nice kind of water reflections there of lights, and just thought this duck looked really cool. So this is a 600mm, just a nice kind of a fairly close to this duck. And here I really noticed, because I was slightly higher, I like to be all the way down at the water's edge, but here I just had to be slightly higher. There was nowhere else to lie. So I'm photographing a little bit down on it, which meant that the immediate background behind the duck was the water itself. But here I think it looks nicely blurred out. Having that long reach is one of the factors of creating these kind of nicer, softer backgrounds. So it really helps having that reach then. Another tufted duck, male this time, same kind of idea, just a frame filling at 600mm. Really like the look of this duck. And here I was just experimenting with slow shutter speeds, and the image stabilization in the OM1 Mark II combined with the 150-600, really good. This is at 1/8 of a second. I was trying to get kind of blur in the back duck, so they were moving about, they were swimming, so kind of getting them blurry, but a sharp female mallard sitting there. And this is handheld. I was lying down, so that gives me a bit of extra support. I wish I would have tried even slower shutter speed. I just didn't think about it then. I was just kind of trying out things, but really impressive. 1/8 of a second with that kind of this wasn't a 600mm. This was a 240mm, but still a really good image stabilization there. And again here testing out the subject detection AI and using it with the 150-600. It was a fairly dark day, so I went for panning shots and slow shutter speeds of the duck kind of flying between these two open bits in the ice. Here I had to zoom back a little bit, because if not I would took a lot of shots there with all the way to 600, and I was just clipping wings and everything. It was really difficult because they're very fast. So here at 391mm, shutter speed of 1/80 of a second, and just came out so sharp. It all happens really fast, and it's just relying on that subject detection and the fact that the lens works well with the camera. It picks it up fast. As soon as I see a bird take flight, I'm up with my camera and I'm just following along, taking loads of images, and this one came out pretty good. I'm very happy with that, and very impressed with how quickly that focus caught the bird. I've seen a couple of questions and comments. I thought I would just address some of them. Here I got the 100-400, I got the 150-600, and I got my own 150-400 with a built-in teleconverter of 1.25. And I've seen a few people actually say, oh, maybe I should just sell this one and get this one instead, since it's much cheaper and you get a longer reach. Obviously, if you need the money, then do that. This is a good lens, but I think you would regret it. Personally, I find this lens is a much better lens than this lens. I can't say that it's very hard to say exactly how good it is, but if I take photos at its furthest reach, so 600 with this one and 500mm in this one, and I zoom in 100% or more, then I notice a difference. This lens produces sharper images more consistently. These are acceptably sharp at 600, but I would not say they're as sharp as this one, or at least I'm producing a lot more sharper images in the field with this lens. I think there's something to be said for going from, I don't know, 400 or 500 up to 600 there. It becomes, you can notice a little bit of a softness if you're zooming really close in. And that's where I think this lens is going to be better. The autofocus works slightly better in this lens as well. And you have a minimum focus distance of 1.3 meters as opposed to 2.8 meters, which I find a little bit of a limitation with this lens. So obviously, if you need the money, sell this lens, get this lens. It's a great reach, it's a fun lens to use. I'm personally going to stick with my 150-400. I love this lens, it is super sharp. I think the two best lenses of the M.Zuiko lineup for wildlife photographers, I think, is this one, and I think is the 300mm f4. I think you can absolutely produce some amazing images with these and other lenses as well, but I do find the 150-400 and 300 to be superior. Also, the 40-150 f2.8 is an excellent lens. When thinking about who this lens is for, this lens is ideal for, imagine you're on a safari trip in Africa or something like that. You're sitting in a car, you're photographing, you got this insane reach of this lens. Or if you're photographing a lot from hides, perfect. Also, if you don't mind the extra weight, this is also a good lens to be walking around photographing. I mean, I do that with this one and they're pretty much the same weight. However, if you're used to the 100-400, maybe the 300, and you came to the Micro Four Thirds system for a really lightweight solution, then this lens is probably not for you. Then the 100-400 or even 300 with teleconverters is probably going to be the better option. However, I don't want to give the wrong impression. I still think this is a great lens. So that's all my initial thoughts on this lens and a little bit on how it compares to some of the other telephoto lenses in the lineup. I think I'd like to do a video where I give a little bit more advice and compare all the different super telephoto zooms that OM system have and give a little bit of more comparison, in-depth comparison. So please leave any questions you have in the comment. I do read them. I apologize for not having got around to answering everybody in the previous video I done. There's so many comments in there and I've just been very busy trying to make more videos and coming out with more content around this new lineup that we have from OM system. Anyways, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.